You don't see much of it. Is it because the international investors don't understand the story, or is it the risk associated with that environment?
I think it's possibly a bit of both. I think definitely they don't understand the story.
Yeah.
They probably haven't, many of them wouldn't have bothered to go deeper to understand the stories. You have to actually learn more to understand. Like the fintech, like as I said, the fintech, you've already seen a lot of success and success story, which really successful. When people see something's going well, they all go in the same direction. For you to swim slightly against the tide and the creative in the various other sectors, someone's going to have to go a bit deeper, as you said, to understand these nuances, and then just daring to see the opportunity. The opportunities are still there, but they were probably looking for the first few success stories before more capital will follow. But I think if they go a bit deeper, they will see just like the fintech story is obvious.
Yeah.
The opportunity in education is obvious. The opportunity in healthcare is obvious. If you go a bit deeper, there's so many people who are not getting the same healthcare that you take for granted in the West, and so on and so forth. And many other sectors, it's just not a level playing field, and we need to create that balance.
What's holding you back? Like, what's in terms, if you're looking at, okay, you want to scale up, you want to invest a little bit further in certain regions of Africa, certain countries. What's holding you back? I mean, there's infrastructure policy.
Well, I mean, firstly, the access to capital is just not the same.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, capital is what makes all these things go around, and the capital here, the capital allocation here is just not the same as it is in those other regions. So
yeah,
if you're starting with a pool that's so much smaller, obviously the net result is going to be less. But then, as you said, understanding the vagaries of the different countries and the different policies is complex. And so maybe you focus on one country, then you want to go to another that's different. But then also, as Africa starts moving forward, it was even touched on today by Dave Rock, as we start moving forward into this single market. You have AfCFTA. These institutions are critical for us because it's going to unlock so much. As you said, if we get to a place of a single currency, free movement, it's all about free movements of goods, services, and people. And when we get there, it just unlocks a much larger market for any investor, anybody. So that's like the dream point. Right. When you get there, that's going to unlock so much. But in between is these barriers of systemic ideas they've created of Africa having these issues that are not there. And once we sort of get past some of those, I think more capital will flow in, more investors will take more risk in looking for solutions. And also, there's no reason why, as we go forward, we're not going to have more and more African startups that will start from here and become the global parent. So this sort of African solution is also something that I'm slightly pushed against, because I don't see why a kid from Joburg can't create something that's for the whole world.
100%.
And that 100% the same way the kid in San Francisco can create. That's what's coming, because the next generation coming aren't hampered with some of the baggage of my generation. They're growing up thinking it's infinite possibility.
That was actually our next question to you, in the sense of like, yeah, it's probably the right time.
Yeah, it's a time now, because they have the generation where
everything is
with these things, so their mind is very open to infinite possibilities.
Is this not part of our problem as entrepreneurs? Should we also not be taking accountability for the lack of investment in this sense? Scientists have said this concept many a times, to say the best way or the first step in solving a problem is to clearly define it. Could it be that the investors are not paying much attention to these problems that we are solving because we are not defining them as clearly as possible? Or could it just be that it's just the risk associated with the environment and the political system that they don't want to touch it? How much of it relies really on me as the entrepreneur clearly stating what this problem is and the opportunity that lies in this problem, versus the investor looking and going, risk, I'm not touching that?
Yeah, and I think you made a very valid point. I think the more clearly you define these things, the more possible you make the investment, because at the end of the day, money likes to come and go where it feels comfortable, where it feels it can come in and it can leave as it pleases. And the more it clearly understands the opportunity, clearly defined in the language and that resonates with them, then the more possible chance of them actually going through with the investment, because they clearly get it. It's the space they understand. They've seen this before. They can see how it can grow, and they can see the possibilities, because the investor's not just investing about today, he's thinking
Yeah.
3 or 4 steps ahead and wants to know that those steps can happen, assuming various levels of execution by the investor. By the entrepreneur.
By the entrepreneur, 100%. So we can actually help this by clearly defining these problems.
And it helps ourselves as well, not obviously,
Right.
even for ourselves. The more clearly defined you are,
Yeah.
the more chance of success.
100%. Sure. Only if this was taught a lot in this entrepreneurship circles.
Be clear.
Very probably a long time. You can be learn that is a great idea, and eventually after years, you're suddenly explaining it simply and clear. It's taking you years just to be able to explain what you're doing simply.
There's elevator pitch, but it's not. It's so easy.
To get there, right, Jack? Especially if it's a multi-layered idea.
And I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs focus on the solution, right? This is how cool the solution is. This is what you could, right? This is what it's going to do, and
You have to get my interest.
Yeah.
Even get to your solution.
Sheesh. And part of that would be clearly defining this and showing rather the scalability around this problem and other applicable cases.
Yeah, exactly. I was just giving an example. I was talking to an entrepreneur. He's actually of Nigerian origin, based in Europe, actually.
Yeah.
And he was telling me a whole story about this thing he wanted to get involved in. He went on and on and on. It was a great program. And then eventually at the end, I said something like, oh yeah, and the investors will get a 20x return on their investment. So I said to him, well, maybe you should start with that. Maybe if you told the person at the beginning it was going to get 20x, then they might have said more clearly from day one. You know, as you said, they're so caught up in their thing, but they're not highlighting what the guy on the other side of the table wants to hit.
Well, speaking of Nigeria, I think Nigeria is now sitting on maybe 4, if not 5 unicorns. And I think 3 of them were in FinTech, 1 was a marketplace. But when you look at the founders of those companies, 3 of them were Nigerian born, but they left very early to go and live abroad, came back and then built these unicorns. And that model seems to be quite common around Africa, where the guys that actually live here are not getting it, but those that go out then come back, seems to come back with something. What is this trend?
Controversial statement from Stanley.
Leave me alone.
I have the answer, but I think definitely they get the exposure of how the game is played over there. Okay, like anything, the more you know how the game is played, the easier it is for you to play it. So I think that's a key part of it. That they probably had exposure, venture capital in the US. They know exactly what these guys are looking for. And as you said, the more the person's comfortable with what they're looking for, the more they're likely to invest. So the guy here might have the same vision, but he might not be able to articulate it to this guy in the language and manner he's used to. This guy's having spent time in the US or Europe, because they know what the investor wants to hear. I think that's definitely a huge help for us.
They make the connections as well.
Yeah, and have the relationships and network. Maybe you went to college with the guy whose friend is here, and that opens the door for them much easier than the guy here who's 6 steps removed to the decision makers.
What would that cycle look like? And I'm just thinking out loud here. I mean, if I'm an investor, I'm interested in creating a pipeline, right? I want to create. I don't want to just catch the guys when they're ready. And with businesses that I can buy or invest in. If I'm to create a pipeline and I'm like, okay, there seems to be this model that works, that guys that leave, expats seem to have better success in businesses than people that are building from here. If I were to create that pipeline where I fund guys to go study and try businesses abroad so they can come back and actually build solutions that are impactful, what would that cycle look like? In terms of time and resources?
I'll tell you the answer slightly different, because if it was me, I wouldn't necessarily start funding the guys from here, because there's already so many of them. Okay, there's already a massive diaspora, whether it's from South Africa, so that's usually the diaspora that you're looking at. And that diaspora is a key driver, in my opinion, for the future success of Africa anyway. Those fintechs are a good example, but there's tons of people who in other walks of life, they've gone to college in the UK, they're in Germany, they're in Holland, and they're coming home in their droves, but what they're doing is bringing knowledge, know-how, experiences, different things, and then applying it to the continent with their family, friends, cousins, brothers, sisters.